Welcome to Gregorian Chat.
Yes. Back again.
Welcome.
You should hope so. It's only episode 2. But
Gregorian
it's
Chat.
episode 2 of Gregorian Chat.
Yes.
This week we are going to be talking about activism. In particular, we're going to be talking about online activism and what we can do as young Catholics in relation to it, whether we should be involved in it and how much or how little. How active we should be.
Tea.
Speaking of tea,
Here we go.
what are we drinking this week, Dom?
French Earl Grey.
French Earl Grey
From our new sponsors, T2. So we're bringing to you a different tea every week, and we'll talk about it a bit. This is horribly overbrewed, so it's gonna be an experience. It's either gonna be great or it's gonna be unpalatable, which should be more our fault than T2's.
It's true.
I just want to put that out there.
T2 are very gracious. They said that we can actually have a different tea every week, so we just have to walk down there and ask for it. Cheers. I'm getting like a big peachy.
Well, that's
Coming
what
off that,
that's
eh?
what Earl Grey is. It's kind of
Is it to do with peach?
It's more peach. No, it's usually citrus. Hey,
Anyway.
actually, it's not bad.
Go and pick up yourself some French Earl Grey from T2.
Even though it's been brewed for about 20 minutes,
Yeah.
it's still very tasty.
I didn't put much tea leaf in.
That'll be it.
So,
That'll be it.
but it's been a long weekend. Today is Wednesday.
Yes.
But we're still just recovering from what was pretty intense.
Yes, I hiked 2 mountains,
Mm-hmm.
Rangitoto, and
It's a volcano.
well, it's kind of inactive. It's not dorm. It's
A
not
bit like
inactive.
me.
Yeah. And also Hanua Falls, great hikes. But I.
Who knew it was a good place?
Who knew? And Cozy Dam, which wasn't too cozy. And so we, and then I've been cycling to work every day, and it's just killed me. So today, no cycling. I gave up.
You need to get back into recycling.
Recycling. That's when you go on the same
You
cycle
need to get
path.
back into cycling. Yeah, recycling.
Yes. So what were you up to this weekend, Tom?
I moved house. Moved house for my fiancée Laura. That was a pretty big deal. We celebrated Chinese New Year. We went to Waiheke on a boat. I'm on a boat and going to Waiheke and...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pain.
Anyway, it was an awesome time. But now I'm super exhausted. But we are really keen to get back into this podcast. And this week is going to be no exception to excitement.
Not at all.
There's been a lot happening in the news recently, almost too much, in fact,
Oh my gosh.
about activism, protesting. So the title of today's podcast is Contesting, Protesting. I might try that a bit lower. Contesting, Protesting.
Every time.
Every time. So the idea is that basically we're just going to have a
Yes.
look at what is protesting, what is activism, does it achieve much?
What is the point?
What is the point?
Yes, because there's been lots of protests, especially recently. We had the Women's March, which is the biggest protest in American history.
What?
Yeah, actually.
Really?
It's apparently the largest number of people, because it wasn't just one place, it was all over the US. And so, yeah, they all came together. They all came under different names and stuff like that, but it's the biggest in American history.
See, what I figure is they're always talking about how Trump lied and didn't have as many numbers at his inauguration as he said he did.
Yep.
I am inclined to count those, was it 500,000 women?
I think it was millions. All up, but I don't know exactly.
But technically, those women are showing up for Trump. So technically they count towards his audience.
So, they didn't
even
like
if it was
him,
on a
but
different
he was
day.
there. He was there.
Exactly. So he smashed Obama's audience out of the water.
There you
That
go.
being said, we are not pro-Trump.
No.
We are just trying to be good Catholics.
We're just, humble men. We're more pro-tractor than pro-Trump.
Mm.
But anyway, so moving on. Yeah, so we have that big women's march, women's rights, good thing to go for. But then you also had in places like New Zealand and the UK protesting against Trump's presidency. Now I can see the solidarity, but you can't go shouting he's not my president, because though that's true,
it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything because you're in a different country. So there is a lot of that. In fact, I was talking to my friend from the States the other day, and she didn't understand it either.
She was in a state.
She was in a state of confusion as to what they were, why they were doing that. So she thought it was a bit ridiculous. But it does actually seem that on the ground, the Americans are pretty concerned about all this. There's a lot of fear going around.
I think so, especially with another thing that's been protested because of Trump's presidency is this whole immigration policy. People are traveling to the United States. They'd already booked tickets, and they were en route to the United States of America when these laws were made and were refused entry at the border.
Yes.
So there's a huge amount of activism and protest going on about that, and most of it is online.
Yes.
And this is something that I think is the most interesting thing, is that probably the majority of protest, of activism, you could say, is done online these days.
Yes.
But I guess my question is it really activism?
Yes, and what do we get involved in? Because I guess it's kind of inactivism, because I mean, like, clicking a link, clicking like on something is really taking you away from things. It's like you're not getting involved. I mean, I have to say, I do like and share a lot of things on Facebook. I've been told this by my friends. It's like, Dom, stop sharing stuff. But it's stuff that I think is good, and I'm like, if it's getting the word out, sharing is the least I can do. Oh, I like that. Click like, and then it kind of gets more views or whatever. I don't know how it all works, but like, helping people out, getting the word around. But then I think people put too much weight on that. It's like, look what I click like on. Yeah, that's right. I'm a real activist. And then you have people like in the Black Civil Rights movement that were activists by going into a cafe and getting heavily abused and just sitting there in silence. It's like, I shared the post that talked about that. It's like, you're not really doing your share of activism, really, are you? I mean, it's like the bare minimum.
The bare minimum. And I guess something that can be potentially really dangerous for young Catholics to do is to let politics come before faith. And especially if it comes to the point of, sharing something like a political post and then having friends or just acquaintances start commenting on this post, and then it gets out of control, and then we basically lose all charity, all reason, common sense.
Yes.
All these things that we should have as young Catholics.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, like, what are some issues that we actually should get involved in?
Yes.
And how should we get involved in them? Because like you're saying with Facebook, it could be really good to promote certain things like the March for Life, which just happened in Washington, D.C. last weekend. Kind of like another example of protesting that happened.
Yes.
And that in the sense is like protesting, because I looked up the Latin, and the word protesting, if you break it down, comes from pro and testis, and pro meaning to give, means public.
Yeah.
And testis is a witness. So when you're protesting, you're giving your public witness, essentially, which is what all these Catholics and I guess just Christians who are doing the March for Life. I
mean, even not doing a protest, as Christians, we're always doing a public witness. We're wearing like my Mary medallion.
Yeah.
That's a public witness of my consecration.
The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
On this incredible bulk.
Not quite yet. I'm working on it. Anyway, but yeah, so you do have protesting is when you hear the word protesting, you think of kind of, okay, let's get 1 million people together and get signs and go marching, and I think that's a very good statement to make. But I think again it comes out, it's like we have to be careful about what purpose we're doing this. Is why are we making this statement? Is it because this is an issue that needs to be addressed, or because personally I mean, and like my friend I was talking to the other night, she was also confused about the whole different countries protesting Trump. It's like you couldn't, even if you got millions of people, the whole country together protesting, you couldn't affect anything in America because you're in a different country, unless you went to war or something. But like,
I saw an interesting article this morning.
Oh yes.
And it kind of made me laugh because it was saying that Hollywood actors are proposing to go on strike until Trump resigns, which means that there might not be another Hollywood movie for 4 years.
Oh.
Because I don't think Trump really cares about whether or not Hollywood makes movies. But this is what we're talking about. It's like, if you're going to do protesting, then it will be an activist of some kind. You've got to make sure that you're getting involved in something that can make a difference.
Yes. Like we had in New Zealand, a campaign that went on. It's called Free the Nipple.
Free the nips.
And here's a good example of like the online versus the reality, because there was a protest that was meant to happen at Mission Bay, down where I live, and online there was like 1,500 or 15,000 people saying that they were going to attend.
Mm-hmm.
On the day there was about 40, and out of those 40 there was only I think 10 women that were actually going the full 9 yards and taking their tops off and walking around topless as a protest. And their whole campaign was based on, well, men can go around without shirts on. Women should be able to as well. It's like, there's homeless people, there's people dying, there's people, refugees were being refused, asylum, and you want to walk around topless. So, I mean, whereas, there may be a deeper meaning that I've missed in this campaign. It seems, in light of everything else that they could be protesting, kind of a bit, they missed the mark a bit. They You started this.
I have to edit this part. Okay. Anyway, so coming back to it, there are some huge issues that as young Catholics we can actually get involved in. One of the biggest ones I'd say is the right to life and the protection of life. So, the March for Life, which happened in Washington, D.C. I remember when I was growing up, we would actually walk around the hospital block and just pray regularly. So we pray for an end to abortion, and euthanasia in our country, and there were some amazing stories that came from that of people who actually saw, or if there was an actual protest, or just people who changed their minds and things like that. And it's important as well to remember the words of Jesus in the gospel, that we have to kind of respect the public authorities, and Paul said this as well, that we have to actually kind of just let men do their thing if they're going to set up certain institutions like government and politics, and that the world will always be the world, but as children of heaven we should operate according to God's will. But at the same time, if you're a law-abiding citizen who was also a Catholic, then obviously violent protest is not the way to go.
True.
But thinking more than that, we actually have to be charitable in what we're getting involved in. So I would say something like the right to life is really essential, and something that may be more pertinent now is, especially with Pope Francis and his encyclicals on the environment and making sure that we protect the environment. But I've never been a fan of save the whales over save the human beings. So it also comes to the point of where we've got to prioritize.
Yes.
I've only got one life to live, and if I'm going to lay down my life for something, then it should be that which is of most importance. So I guess for each person, each Catholic will have to determine that for themselves.
And I think we're touching on a lot of bigger issues here, like the use of violence as a Christian. It's like, can we ever fight? Can we ever be part of the army and stuff like that? That's probably another podcast. But also, like, the bigger issue you're talking about, the March for Life, very good cause to get involved in. There's just so many amazing stories around that of people changing their mind and bringing life to the world. But it's quite a big topic, because, like, for example, the big Women's March in America, they wouldn't allow women that were pro-life in the march because it goes against their idea of women's rights, like the rights to their own body. So I think that's something we need to tackle in another podcast maybe. But I think,
Okay.
and also the fact that pro-life doesn't just mean stopping abortions. It means the supporting of life after that. And if you go to the Family Life International Centre, I think it's out west here, they actually do have a really good program there, and we'll probably get one of them to come and talk to us about that one time. But
Awesome.
you know, getting involved in things, pro-life is always a good movement as a Catholic to get involved in, as much as possible. I think something we need to bear in mind is, like, as Catholics, we don't have to understand everything that's Catholic straight away. So you go as far as you can, and being pro-life is a good stance to take. But if you don't understand something, don't knock it on the head and say it's rubbish. But like, be aware that, you know, I don't understand this just yet, but I will look into it. And I think, you know, that's also key to our activism. It's like you see someone protesting something, and on the surface level it sounds good. It's like, yes, we should get involved in that. But then you look into it, and it's like, actually, I don't agree with this anymore. So it's like, always look into what you are going to be protesting or being active for.
Yeah.
And so then you can make an informed choice.
Amen, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all we have time for this week, but thanks for listening. Be sure to check us out on Instagram at Auckland Catholic Chaplaincy. I got it wrong last time, sorry. We're also on Facebook.
Facebook / The Chaplains.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a Twitter account, which again I think is The Chaplains. So I'll have to look into that.
I don't even know about that, but
We did.
anyway. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with another episode, so stay tuned.
Good
Go.
night.
We got this.
God bless. And there we go.